Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.
When we listen, when we share,
things always go better.
When we show how much we care,
we grow strong together. Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.
Hi, my name is Barry Stewart Mann.
And I'm Deborah Strahorn, and welcome to Storybooks for Strong Communities.
In this series of videos, we're going to be sharing with you some of our favorite stories from children's picture books. Stories that show the importance of being in a community, of supporting other people in your community, of having a strong community around you.
And if you like them, you can find them at your favorite library, or if you really want them, you can purchase them at a local bookstore.
So now it's time for Storybooks for Strong Communities. Well, our first story is about a child who goes off into her community and engages with her wonderful community and sees the wonderful things around on a very special day. And it reminds me that when I was younger, with each year, with each birthday, there were things that I could do that I couldn't do the year before. I'm remembering one time, I don't know, maybe I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my mom and my best friend's mom, his name was David, they told us that instead of coming home right after school, we could actually walk to the middle of our town to the barber shop and get our haircuts together. And so our teachers knew that. And so after school was over, no one was there to pick us up. We weren't getting on a bus. We just walked a couple of blocks to the barber shop. But when we got to the barber shop, the barber asked us what kind of a haircut did we want. And we didn't know, and our mothers hadn't told us. And the barber said, well, do you want a buzz cut? That's kind of cutting off all the hair. And we said, sure. So our mothers were really surprised when they came to pick us up and they saw we had no hair left. But luckily, it grew back. Well, this is a story. Our story now is about a girl who is celebrating a birthday. And the story is called Carmela Full of Wishes. You know, on birthdays, we make wishes. And this is written by Matt de la Peña with illustrations by Christian Robinson. And it's about a girl named Carmela on her birthday. And even though the words don't tell us, but we can tell that on her birthday, she wakes up and her mother has pancakes set out with candles in them. And there are 7 candles, so she must be turning 7 years old. And she has special birthday bracelets that go, they jingle. I have a little thing to jingle. That's the sound that her bracelets make. And her mother, when she gives her the pancakes with the candles, her mother says, Feliz cumpleaños. You see, her family speaks Spanish and English, and that means happy birthday. And then her mother says, blow out the candles and make a wish. But Carmela doesn't have to make a wish because she's already made her wish and it's going to come true. She asked for permission to go with her brother doing errands in the town. Now, her brother's not that happy about it, but he has to let her come along. And so she gets on her scooter, and her brother is pulling a cart that has laundry in it. And as she goes along, her bracelets jingle, and her brother keeps looking back and giving her dirty looks because he doesn't like that sound and he finds it annoying. Well, they go past the fields where there are lots of men working out in the fields picking flowers. And even though the flowers smell good, the fields don't smell that good because there's something called manure in the fields. The manure is a kind of fertilizer to help the plants grow, and the fertilizer comes from animals, so it doesn't smell good at all. But they go past that, and then they come into the town. When they come into the town, they see there are people on the street selling things. There are people selling flowers and selling fruits and vegetables. They go past a big home improvement store where their father, when he was living with them, he used to go there on Saturday mornings waiting for someone to offer him some work. Their father wasn't living with them at this point in the story. He had to go live somewhere else. And then they went past the old folks' home where they saw old women smiling and waving. And then they finally got to the laundromat. That was their big errand, to do the laundry. But right before they came into the laundromat, as she was jingling her bracelets, she looked down and she saw, growing out of the sidewalk, a single dandelion. You know what a dandelion is? It's a plant, and it grows these little fluffy things, and you can blow them, and they just go flying through the air, or the wind might blow them away. It's actually how the seeds of the plant, and the wind carries it to help the plant grow in other places. And Carmela was about to blow on it, and her brother looked at her and said, "No, did you make a wish?" And she said, "What?" And he said, "Don't you know you're supposed to make a wish before you blow the spores off a dandelion?" Well, she didn't know that, but she said, "Of course, I know. Well, I'm thinking about my wish." And so she carried it into the laundromat. And she helped her brother sort out the clothes. And there they were surrounded by lots of other people, everyone chatting with each other, everyone doing their laundry, putting it in the washers and the dryers. And they sat there and waited. And every so often, she jingled her bracelets, and her brother looked at her a little bit annoyed. When the clothes were done, she helped to fold them and sort them with one hand because she was holding on to her dandelion. And then they went off to do other errands. And as she walked along, she was thinking, what should her wish be? She didn't want to make it a bad wish. She wanted to make it the best wish she could. Well, they came to Miss Maria's vegetable stand, and as her brother was picking things out, she started imagining having a machine in her room that would just give her anything she wanted. And she especially wanted candies. That would be what she wanted from her machine. And then they went on to the locksmith shop. Her brother had to get a key or something. And she started imagining her father. You see, he was away because he had to get his papers fixed. He didn't have the right papers that allowed him to be in the country and in the town with them. And so she imagined what it would be like if her father could get his papers fixed and come back and live with them. And then they went to a bodega that was right downstairs from the apartment that they used to live in. And she imagined her mother at the hotel that she worked at. You see, her mother worked at a hotel making beds and cleaning rooms. But she imagined what it would be like if her mother could sleep in one of those beds instead of making them up for other people to sleep in. And then they went by the pharmacy, and in a window they saw lots of bicycles, and she imagined having a bicycle for herself. But all the while she was riding her scooter, and her brother was pulling the laundry cart. And then she had to sit outside while her brother went in to talk to some of his friends, and she got a little impatient. She was still thinking about her wishes, but she imagined her brother being a rat or a cockroach or something. And finally he came out. And as she followed him, they came to a place where she was going to try and get her scooter up on a curb, and she jumped up, but she fell, and she dropped the dandelion. And the dandelion ended up getting all ruined. All the spores flew off, and she felt so bad, and she was a little bit bruised. But her brother was very nice. He came and he picked her up, and he said, come along, Carmela." And she felt bad the whole way, but they went back. They went back past the old folks' home and past the home improvement store and past the laundromat and the bodega and the apartment where they used to live and Miss Maria's stand and the flower sellers. And they even went past the field where all the people were picking the marigolds, and it smelled not very good at all. And then they came to a farmhouse where they could hear the sound of the ocean, because they lived in a town very close to the ocean. And there, her brother said, "Close your eyes, Carmela." So she closed her eyes, and he led her along and along and along and along. And she could hear the sound of the ocean, the waves crashing on the shore, and the sound of the birds in the air. And she could even hear the sound of her bracelets jingling as she went. And then he stood her still, and he said, "Carmela, make a wish and open your eyes." And she opened her eyes, and she looked and saw a whole field full of dandelions, and the wind blew, and the spores went everywhere. And those were all of her wishes, going off into the world, wishes for her family, wishes for her community, wishes for herself. And she felt like it was a great birthday. And just to make her brother feel better, because he had made her feel so well, she took off her bracelets and put them in her pocket, and together they went back home. Well, that's an interesting story about a girl who had lots of wishes for herself and for her community and her journey through the community, and how a strong community has people who help each other, who work together, who sell things and buy things together, who do things together. That's the story by Matt de la Peña and Christian Robinson, with illustrations by Christian Robinson, called Carmela Full of Wishes. You might be able to find this in your library, or there are other books by Matt de la Peña and Christian Robinson. They're all wonderful, and they're all really about strong communities.
When I was growing up, my village was my community, and it was about 5 blocks wide. 1 block to the east was my elementary school, Arthur Dixon Elementary. 2 blocks to the west was the church I attended, and 3 or 4 blocks down the street was the grocery store and even the movie theater we went to once a month. My neighbors were my village. Mr. and Mrs. Adams looked out for us as we let ourselves in after school. Across the street was Mrs. McGee. She was a nurse, but she was also the best cook. And then there was Mrs. Finch, 2 doors down, who was not only my neighbor, but also my 5th grade teacher. So my community was my village. Just like in this story, It Takes a Village, written by Jane Cohen Fletcher. Now, this story takes place in a marketplace in Benin, which is a little country in West Africa. And they go to the marketplace, which is an open outdoor market. They have tents and tables set up to sell their wares, and sometimes they have mats to sit on. Now, in this story, a little girl named Yemi goes to market with her brother, Koku, and her mother. And today is the first day that she's going to be responsible for watching Koku. I remember when my sister and I would go out, the rule was that we leave together and we come back together. And that's a big responsibility. So as they prepare to go to market, they pack the bags. Mama's selling mangoes at markets today. And when they get to the market and get everything set up, Yemi says, "Mama, can Koku and I walk around the marketplace?" And the other women at the market, they say, "Oh, what a big girl you are." And Yemi stands nice and tall because she knows that she's getting bigger and she's more responsible. So she's excited about her job today of watching Koku. So her mother lets her go and she walks around the market looking at all the other vendors. It's crowded and everyone is laughing and talking because the market is not just a place where they sell their wares, but they also socialize and greet one another. "How are you today? How's the family? Good to see you." Well, Koku and Yemi are walking, and then Yemi knows that Koku must be hungry, so she puts him down for just a moment to buy some nuts. And then she looks around, and in the blink of an eye, he's gone. "Koku, Koku, where are you?" But Koku is nowhere to be found. Well, Yemi gets nervous, and she starts walking and walking, looking for her brother, but she doesn't see him. And she thinks to herself, "Oh, Koku must be hungry." But he is not. Koku has found a nice place with one of the village women. He's sitting on her lap and she's feeding him a bowl of rice. So Koku is not hungry at all. But Yemi continues to look for him. She gets more worried as the day gets long. Yemi's worried that Koku must be tired, but he is not. He found a nice spot with a vendor. He's laid out on a mat in the cool shade, taking a nap. Yemi continues to look around for Koku. He must be thirsty, but she doesn't know. Koku is not. He must be frightened, she thought, but Koku is not. Oh, Koku is lost and hungry and tired and thirsty, but he is not. You see, the marketplace is a village. It's a village of community where people look out for one another. Yomi is upset and she sits down and she calls his name, Koku, Koku. And she looks around and there he is, sitting with one of the villagers carving out something in the dust. Yemi is so relieved and she runs to Koku and puts her arms around him and gives him a big hug. And the vendor just laughs. You need not worry. It takes a village to raise a child. And here in the village, we look out for one another. And that's what we do in strong communities. It takes a village, and you can find it at your local library.
For our last story, we have a story about something beautiful. Do you like beautiful things? I bet you do. I like beautiful things. We all like to have beauty around us. We see beauty in the people around us, in our family members and our friends. They're beautiful to us. But also you might have beautiful art or beautiful furniture or beautiful clothing. And we like to have beautiful things in our homes, but also around our homes. And our next story is in a book, and it's actually about something real, something that really happened, about people who looked around their community. They looked around the neighborhood they lived in, and they saw an opportunity to make something beautiful. The book that the story is in is called Maybe Something Beautiful, and it's written by F. Isabel Campoy and Teresa Howell and illustrated by Rafael Lopez. And we'll tell you more about him after we tell you the story. But the story is about something real that happened in a city called San Diego that's out in California, far away from where we are in Atlanta. But it's a city kind of like Atlanta because it's very big and there are lots of people, and it can be kind of gray there with all the traffic and the big buildings. And that's how it was in the story. You see, the story tells about how there was a girl, and she lived in this city. It doesn't say what the city was in the story, although we learn later that it's based on San Diego. But that this girl named Mira lived in the city, and the city was kind of gray and grimy and dirty, and everywhere she looked, it looked kind of gray, and it wasn't very exciting. And she was someone who really loved colors.
Mira loved drawing, and she loved drawing pictures of anything, of everything. And she drew on paper, and she drew on bags, and she drew on walls. She drew pictures of apples, of animals, of airplanes, of kites flying in the sky. Mira just drew and drew and drew. And she loved drawing so much that she gave her drawings to everyone.
She would walk down the street and see a police officer and maybe give him a picture of an apple, or she drew a heart and saw a woman that she knew from her neighborhood and offered it to her, or maybe someone in a shop, there'd be a picture of a bicycle, and her pictures were always very, very colorful. She loved giving pictures to all the people of her neighborhood to make things more beautiful for everyone.
She put pictures up everywhere. They made the city feel less gray, but not much. And then one day, she saw a man.
He was a strange man. She had never seen him before. He had on a funny artsy hat and brightly colored shirt and a pocket full of paintbrushes. And he came up to a blank wall, and he looked at the wall, and he said, And he put his hands together like he's making a picture frame, and he went,
And Mira said, "What do you see?"
And he said, maybe something beautiful. And then he reached into his pocket and pulled out some of the paintbrushes, and he got out some paint, and he started painting beautiful colors here and there. And Mira was amazed. And he looked at Mira, and he gave her a paintbrush, and he said, "Would you like to paint too?"
And Mira said, "But who are you?"
He said, "I'm an artist. I'm a painter. I'm a muralist. I paint pictures on walls. Won't you paint with me?" Come on!
And then Mira dipped the brush in the paint and yowie! Yowie! Whoa!
And Mira and the artists were painting this way and that, lots of different colors all over the wall, and soon people from all around the neighborhood came out to see what was going on, and they offered them paintbrushes as well, and different colors of paint, and soon lots of people were painting, and painted and painted and painted. There were colors everywhere, and the neighbors, like the woman that Mira had given the picture to, she came and painted, and men from the shops, they came out and painted. Everyone just threw on their old clothes, and they got paint splattered everywhere, but the paint was going all over as well.
And even Mira's mother came and painted, and they started dancing and prancing. They danced the cha-cha-cha, and pretty soon it became a whole block party. Everybody dancing, painting, and having fun.
And in the midst of all this, suddenly, the police officer came, and he looked at Mira, and everyone looked, and the music stopped, and everyone stopped what they were doing. And the police officer said, "Excuse me." And Mira was sure that they were all in trouble, that they were all going to be sent home, and that they'd have to clean off the paint and everything. But the police officer said, "Can I paint too?" And they gave him a paintbrush, and he painted too.
And the music started again. And mothers and fathers and babies and teachers and everybody joined in. And the music started, and they painted and painted and painted.
And when they finished painting the wall, they kept going. Wherever the man and Mira went, they painted. They painted utility boxes. They painted the sidewalk. They painted crosswalks. And the people followed along. And they painted something more beautiful than they had ever imagined before. And when it was done, the man pulled all his things back together. And he said, "You are all artists. You create magic." And they all admired the beautiful things that they had painted.
And as the man left, and Mira was almost finished, she decided to paint one more thing way up in the sky. And she thought maybe, just maybe.
And that's the story in Maybe Something Beautiful, about people who saw something gray in their city and decided to make something beautiful from it. And, we used our fabrics to kind of give you the idea of painting, but you might want to try and get this book out of the library or even buy it somewhere, because the illustrations really give a wonderful feeling of all the beautiful things that they actually painted in that place in San Diego. And something really special, I told you I'd tell you a little more about the illustrator Rafael Lopez, that Rafael Lopez is actually one of the artists who painted the mural in San Diego. He did it with his wife, Candace, Rafael and Candace Lopez. And you can even, see images of what that really looks like. In fact, here's an image of what that actual place looks like that the book and the story, Maybe Something Beautiful, are based on. But it's not just in San Diego where there are murals to make neighborhoods and communities beautiful. We have some wonderful murals in Atlanta as well. Here are a few of them from different parts of our city. Images that show nature, images that show famous people, images that show the communities around us. You might have murals like this in your own neighborhood. And this story, Maybe Something Beautiful, gave a great example of how a community came together to achieve something. That's what makes strong communities, when people work together to make their communities better.
Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities. When we listen, when we share,
Things always go better.
when we show how much we care.
We grow strong together.
Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.